everyone, and welcome to the Rundown, where we talk about 2A news and conservative views. I will be your host today, Craig DeLuz, coming at you from the West Coast, the left coast, behind the Iron Curtain, otherwise known as the Sierras. But as we all know, I do not do this program by myself.
Nope, my name is Mike Piorowski, coming to you live from the East Coast. That's the coast with the most, from the co-host with the most. Here on the Rundown, 2A views, conservative news. Craig, how was your Christmas?
It was phenomenal. So we do a kind of a big gathering with family and friends on Christmas Eve, and then Christmas Day is real chill. We, get up, do the Christmas gifts with the immediate family. We'll go visit my son that night, but it is very chill. It was phenomenal. Lots of good food and libations. How about yourself?
There you go. Much the same. I enjoy cooking on Christmas Eve or Christmas Day, whatever it's going to be, and made a bunch of stuff. Went over to a good family friend's house, and had Christmas there, and it was wonderful. I ate way too much and didn't drink enough, though, I would say.
Oh, well, you're going to have to fix that next time. Well, you got New Year's Eve to make up for it.
Hey, I'm working on it right now.
Yeah, folks, overall, it was a phenomenal Christmas. I hope each and every one of you also enjoyed your Christmas. Also loved watching the specials.
Hope you had a great one. Yep.
Yes, sir. Well, hey, let's go ahead, before we get into the show today, let's go ahead and get a quick shout out to our sponsors. And then we'll start moving along with the dialogue.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's say hello to our good friends out at Hitman Industries. That's hitmanindustries.net, hitmanindustries.net. You got yourself an AR, probably got one of their barrels and don't even know it. Now you can go buy from them direct for your next build or to rebarrel your current AR platform. That's hitmanindustries.net. California Republican Assembly, fighting the good fight behind enemy lines. You can get involved with California's future today. Just go to the California Republican Assembly. Take a look at them. If you want some awesome field gear, some tactical gear, hunting gear, cold weather gear, whatever you want, they've got it over at uscombatgear.com. So make sure you check out uscombatgear.com. And of course, if you want the best in holsters out there, concealment holsters, tactical holsters, inside the waistband holsters, get your butt over to Hog Holsters. That's HAWGholsters.com, HAWGholsters.com. Use the discount code, The Rundown, all one word, all caps, no spaces.
Mike, I totally forgot to mention that I had a really fun time with Festivus over the weekend. It made my weekend, to be quite honest with you, because as I continued to share the numerous traditions of Festivus, everybody looked at me like I was crazy.
Yes, I'm pretty pure. I'm an originalist, so I always like to start my Festivus with "Raining blows down upon someone." That's
and I imagine probably that it goes all downhill if you're unable to stay out of the hooskow.
Yeah. Well, you got to pick your fights, right? You got to pick your fights.
Definitely got to pick your fights. Yeah, my kids, I was funny because I just started talking about it, and they're like, look at me like, that doesn't sound funny at all. I said, tell you what, turn on the episode. Now they're believers.
It's not meant to be fun, right? It's a serious thing. Listen,
it's a serious holiday. Well, I, for one, find it entertaining. We'll just leave it at that.
Well, any good holiday should be entertaining. It's just, it's a serious thing, and I'm curious, how did the airing of grievances go for you?
Oh, well, I was selective in the grievances in which I aired because I didn't want my wife airing grievances against me over airing of grievances, because her airing of grievances would probably mean my sleeping on the couch.
Well, listen, she's only allowed to air her grievances if she can beat you in the feats of strength. So. Yeah.
Oh, I did not know that. Well, see.
Well, you've got to apply your own rules to it,
Oh, there you go. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, I can get down with that. Anyway, fun time was had by all nonetheless.
Very good. Glad
you. All right. Well, let's go ahead. Let's get into today's stories. We're going to start with releasing of the Twitter files. I believe this is number 7, right? And in this particular release of the files, there was something that was very, very important that was noted. Now, not only, by the way, after it was released and found out that the FBI not only was involved in censorship, but paid social media companies millions of dollars for the time it took for them to do this censorship, to implement this censorship. So we already know the millions of dollars went to have them censor conservatives. But on top of that, we now find out that they were not the only state actors. In fact, Mike, the CIA was involved in doing the very same thing. Now, mind you, they mainly are speaking to they're mainly speaking to them and other agencies. They were not involved in it to the degree that the FBI was. But still, the fact that you have America's foreign covert clandestine agency involved in censorship here in these United States. One has to wonder how the mainstream media is failing to report on any of this.
Well, because it's not their agenda, Craig. It's not what the information that they want to get out. It's really no surprise that the CIA was involved. If the FBI was involved, the CIA is not sitting around going, "Wow, look what they're doing and we're not doing." They're going to get involved. It's just it's a little bit of professional pride for them. They can't be the only ones not involved with this. So, clearly now we know that they were. And like I said, this is not the agenda that the administration wants out. It's not the agenda that the media wants out. So it's going to go, back page kind of stuff.
And folks, just to be clear, this is not about whether or not they were censoring conservatives or liberals. And we basically know they were almost solely doing conservatives. Or if you were liberal and expressed either a conservative perspective or any doubt relating to the government narrative on COVID, then you were censored in one way, or then you were censored. You were throttled. We know this. We now know this is happening, and the mainstream media once again is failing utterly, clearly to report on it. And I'm just wondering, Mike, if this had come out, and let's say, the Trump administration was working to silence. Let's say there was a big report that was coming out by the Huffington Post, and Twitter had shut down the Huffington Post Twitter page, right? Shut down their Twitter account, and then Facebook decided that they were going to censor any bit of that story that came out of the Huffington Post. How long do you think it would be before MSNBC, CNN, and all the other left-wing alphabet soups, New York Times, all of them would have lost their minds?
Oh, it'd have been instantaneous, and then we'd have another year and a half worth of hearings on the Hill, to discuss the collusion, and misappropriation of the media that Donald Trump had been accused of.
Right. Well, eventually we'll find out. We will know, and it will be confirmed that this all, in fact, did happen. And once again, it'll probably be too late. We'll probably find it out after the 2024 election. That's probably when it'll all come out, whether a Republican wins or not. And before 2022, I would have said a Republican was going to win for sure. But nowadays, I'm not too sure. The way they are escalating their cheating. I'll just call it cheating.
Their disingenuousness. We'll call it
yes.
That, yeah.
They're not, and it's amazing to me though that to hear the left tell it. Elon Musk is the worst thing. I mean, the worst individual enemy, the complete and utter enemy of free speech. And yet all he's saying is, both sides get to talk.
Yeah. Oh, the way, here's the sides that we're talking that you didn't know about when you accuse somebody else of doing the exact same thing.
Right. One has to wonder exactly how that flies, but I don't know. I ain't the one.
What's the difference between the media and a conspiracy theory? Was it about
3 to 6 months?
3 to 6 months. Yeah, between the truth and the conspiracy theory. Yeah, about 3 to 6 months.
Yeah. Because eventually, once there is so much overwhelming evidence, they will no longer be able to deny it. And that's why it's interesting that now that the media they've confirmed that Hunter Biden's laptop is real, it does exist, and that the stuff that they have, the data that's on it, is real. Why are they not talking about what that stuff is?
Well, they don't want you to. Let's move on.
But,
Come on. Let's
it's
next news cycle.
there's some serious. I mean, not just Hunter Biden stuff. I mean, we're talking. There are some serious ties and links to his father, to influence peddling and trading, and they're not mentioning any of. They're acting like, oh, well, this has just got to do with some tax stuff with gold. Hunter the crackhead over there.
Well, because it would completely dismantle our efforts in the Ukraine and why we're there.
Right. Yeah.
Remember the rumor? Remember the rumor that Hunter was on the board of commissions for the Ukraine oil and gas company, getting $100,000 a month for doing nothing but having his name on it alone. Wonder if that has anything to do with the president's involvement in the Ukraine now.
One has to wonder, and at the very least, we should all have access to all of that information. Let's clarify. We do all have access to it. Some of us have seen it because it was downloadable. Yeah. It was all made available. But for some reason, most of the mainstream media has decided that they're not going to report on it. And by the way, there have been polls that have said, where people have basically said, if they had known about a lot of this stuff before the election, they probably wouldn't have voted for him.
Go figure, right? Man, it sounds like almost like collusion and election manipulation.
Well, Russian collusion at that, because who made the dossier?
That's right. Exactly.
But I digress. Our good friend, Mr. Raskin. It's okay. So this is a guy is a member of the House over there. He's a Democrat. He is basically arguing that, how do I want to put it? He's basically arguing that what's it called? He's arguing that the
Good morning.
Electoral
College.
Let's play.
We wish you a Merry Christmas and Happy Hanukkah. Thank you for joining us this holiday Sunday. The clock is still ticking on the final days of 2022, but there's a lot that's going to carry over to 2023. Today, we want to take a look at some of those stories. We're joined now by Maryland Democratic Congressman Jamie Raskin, a member of the committee investigating the January 6th attack. Good morning to you.
Hello, Margaret. Pleased to be with you.
This is an incredible body of work, all coming to this conclusion now. What do you think Americans at home need to know?
It's a story of some real villainy and some real danger to democracy, but also of real heroism and commitment to American democratic freedom. And with democracy under attack all over the world, like with Putin invading Ukraine, and the Ukrainian people standing up for their democratic freedom, and tyrants and autocrats on the march everywhere, it's good to know that we have a strong, resurgent democratic spirit in America.
The institutions held. But at the conclusion of this, because you've spent almost 2 years investigating, what happens next for you? Are there pieces of this that in the new Congress, even under Republican control, need to be further investigated or somehow legislated around?
Well, when you say the institutions held, they did hold just barely. The truth is that we need to continually be renovating and improving our institutions.
How so? What do you mean?
Well, I think that the Electoral College now, which has given us 5 popular vote losers as president in our history, twice in this century alone, has become a danger, not just to democracy, but to the American people. It was a danger on January 6th. There's so many.
Okay, so I apologize, folks, that I messed that up. I meant to put up the story, and I actually wound up running the video. But you got kind of the point. Is their whole goal is to tie the January 6th to the Electoral College and talk about how dangerous the Electoral College is, and that it puts our democracy at risk. Our democracy, quote unquote, is in danger. And Mike, I don't want to steal your thunder, but I'm imagining that there are at least a few errors that you noticed that you'd like to bring up and issues you'd like to bring with Mr. Raskin.
Oh, well, should we start with the attack on January 6th? Listen, how many times we got to say it? Tourism is not a crime, right? This guy is so far left and so far a Trump hater that he should be censored. Anything he says should be skewed with a 99% BS factor to it. The Electoral College, Craig, besides the Second Amendment, I think is probably the greatest thing that the founding fathers came up with. The way that they outlined it, they knew here, over 200 and 250 years in advance that the opportunity for population centers, New York, DC, DC at the time, right? Los Angeles, that if you put in place an electoral popular vote system without an electoral college, then you would simply have, a mass, the mass would be correct, right? The majority rules. Well, you know what? That's not what's in our Constitution, and that's why the Electoral College is there. So it gives equal to say, to the farmer in Iowa as it does to the city dweller in New York City. It lays weight to states. It lays weights to the number of Electoral College votes. That way, you can't have the packing of it. Look like we see out of California, Craig. We don't even bother to guess what way California is going to go anymore. We just award them their electoral votes when it's time for a national election, for a presidential election, and then see what the rest of the country decides. That way, it's not the numbers out of California that will always beat the numbers of the surrounding states. The Electoral College is the way that this country has maintained a well-balanced vote as opposed to majority rules. Because guess what? If you read the Constitution, when it comes to presidential elections, majority does not rule. That's not the way it was designed to be.
Oh, no, you're 100% correct. We are a nation of laws, right? We are not a democracy. We are a constitutional republic that democratically elects our leaders to make laws. And the fundamental law, the one upon which all laws should be based, is the Constitution. And so an attempt to go around the Constitution, to ignore the Constitution, is about about ignoring the fundamentals. Because the founding fathers understood this, that democracy is two wolves and a sheep deciding what to have for lunch, right? As soon as the majority understands that they have the ability to take everything they want from the minority, they will. And that's what you see happening in many of these states, like California, like New York, where you have these centers. What's funny is, in those states, not only do those states want to have an outsized control on the entire country, but it's really not even states. It's a handful of really huge cities that are failing, right? That are dependent on rural and suburban people to prop them up, right? To prop them up, and still they want to make us live like they live and live by their rules, but they want to completely ignore any of the interests of people who don't want to live near them or around them, right? Not because of race or gender or anything like that. It's their values are inconsistent with the values of the rest of America. And the rest of America has a right to say no. And so they came up with the idea of the Electoral College so that you can't just ignore the rest of America and say, okay, well, I'm going to go to New York, I'm going to go to Chicago, and I'm going to go to Los Angeles and San Francisco and ignore everyone else.
Yeah, listen, the Electoral College, keeps us from dealing with the popular vote being, the final say. Listen, popular vote equals mob rule when you get to the national level. All right.
Yes.
And now, listen, the presidential election is the only election that deals with the Electoral College, again, because they recognized that they wanted somebody to be as represented in Ohio, or Nebraska as they do in New York or California. You have popular vote when it comes to electing your senators and electing your congresspeople, but that's from the individual states. That's the states picking their representatives to go sit in the national House or Senate.
But Mike, just to clarify, it was never originally intended for the senators to be popularly elected. They were supposed to be elected and appointed by the state legislatures in the respective states. the idea was that the House of Representatives was the popular elected, the people's house, and then the Senate is supposed to be kind of more thought out, more experienced. Those are supposed to be the people who are focused on, they're getting elected, but representing their state's policies, by being sent there by lawmakers. But we wound up obviously changing it so now that they're popularly elected.
Well, Craig, it's one of those things where your state House of Representatives is elected by the popular vote, and then they were, like you said, they were supposed to elect the federal House of Representatives and Senate. However, now you have the popular vote coming from the people, so it's the popular vote instead of the popular vote electing the people to choose the senators. Now you have the popular vote for both items, or for all three items, the state and the federal House and Senate. So, I get that they were concerned at the time that there was going to be corruption inside and within. And remember, this happened back in the day when there really was zero transparency, just because of the nature of the times we were living in. There was no digital age. There was no newspapers that day. There was no morning editions or anything like that. It was, they voted and you found out a month later who voted for who. So I think that gave the individual people the opportunity to take part in that system, whereas they still use the state legislatures to enact those laws on the state level. So right. I get where it happened. I think either one today would work okay because of the actual transparency that we do have. However, like I said, the federal presidential election was never meant to be a popular vote. Why they continue to use the numbers for the popular vote is just to show their anger with the choice not being the one they wanted.
Well, it just goes to show how many of the left are uninformed, ill-informed, or misinformed.
I mean, Craig, just as a quick example, let's say we add, 20 million people to the state of California tomorrow, right? Mm-hmm. We know about 70 or 80% of them are going to be Democrats, so that's going to pad those numbers even more on the popular vote. However, when you go with electoral colleges and the number of electoral votes, nothing would change. So the popular vote has nothing to do with the
it would change every 10 years. It would change based on the census numbers in terms of how many electoral votes California would get. In other words, California's electoral votes don't stay the same, but yes, it's not going to be a person for person change.
Correct. Yeah.
But once again, it'll be changed to a degree such that California will still be it'll still have a huge chunk of the votes, but it won't be changed so much such that people will be able to, once again, ignore smaller states like Wyoming or Alaska or Kansas or any number of those mid-sized to smaller states.
Yes, absolutely.
All right, moving right along. I want to say that I honestly, truly want to say that this was a given. I mean, we always knew that the CDC, the Center for Disease Control, which for some reason has taken it upon itself to actually study. Well, they study causes of death, but they've taken a special interest in firearms-related deaths. And in particular, what their goal has been is many at the CDC see the Second Amendment as a disease and want to see the individual right to keep and bear arms gotten rid of. And so for a long time they did research, and that research wasn't necessarily research. It was a development of propaganda in order to encourage lawmakers to end the Second Amendment. And they were basically told, no, you cannot do that. If you are going to, you can study you can study firearms and firearm deaths, but you cannot use any of the money that you get from it from Congress to advocate for gun control. It's specifically what they said. Well, now we've come to find out that not only did they not do that, but when they did have research that showed that people were using firearms effectively to defend themselves, at the pressure, a number of emails, phone calls, and meetings with gun control agencies, the CDC actually caved And they actually got rid of and hid data talking about self-defense, about how often firearms are used by individuals. I think it was about over 2 million times firearms had been used in self-defense. They basically hid that data after meeting with gun control groups.
Yeah, I love how for this story too, Craig. I mean, they don't even know how to portray what they're trying to say. Hey, let's go find somebody with an old revolver and a fanny pack concealing a gun in 1988. You know, what did you just? The pictures that they find for these things always amaze me because they have no understanding of everyday carrying firearms. Yeah, we talked about this a couple weeks ago, right? When this story first broke, that it's not in there. It does not appear as though the data is in there. The CDC's pulled this information out. There must have been some collusion, and we all took a look at it and said, the government's involved, the administration's involved in this, and now boom, here you go, folks. Here's your proof. Get your platter out. Put the information on the platter because it's being served to you right now. What you choose to do with it is what we want to see from you. We want to see you take this information and start having these conversations, start relaying this confirmation, start sharing this information to everybody else, so everybody understands how the government, how this administration is trying to get involved and control you.
Right. And folks, once again, this is nothing more than censorship. Except in this case, it's a private group that's influencing a government agency. Right. Folks, you need to understand how in bed these folks are with each other. They are hiring each other. They're working for, whether it's the FBI and you have people leaving the FBI to go to work for Twitter and go to work for Facebook, or you have people with the CDC who are leaving the CDC and going to work for Everytown or for the Brady campaign. They are all there and they're all advocating for a liberal left-wing agenda. In this particular case, we're talking about gun control, but it's happening in a number of different areas. Whether it's the issue of protecting innocent life, whether it has to do with gender identity stuff, whether it has to do with taxes and the economy, they are in cahoots and they are advocating. The media is not reporting the news; they're advocating. These government agencies are not protecting your rights or doing their jobs, enforcing the law. They are advocating, and you need to understand that as you deal with them.
Listen, you talked about FBI. We talked about CIA last one. We're talking about government agencies. They clearly get their marching orders from the administration. That's the way it's supposed to be. They tell them what their priorities are. They should be trying to stay within the rule of law, but we've seen that sometimes that's a little bit more difficult for them. As far as these independent agencies, yes, Craig, you're right. They are independent, but they all have the hand of the administration on their shoulder guiding them.
Yes, they do. Yes, they do. And this one the hand needs to change. How about that?
Yeah, there you go.
All right. Next on the list, I found this to be interesting, Mike, and the reason why I wanted to report on this story was because you talked really eloquently about kind of the history of kind of the respect that the military has for Confederate soldiers. And it's interesting because now at West Point, they're starting to remove any Confederate iconography from campus. And I just wanted to get your perspective on this and see what you thought about this. Do you think this is, I'm just gonna guess and think you disagree with it. Not so much. I mean, do you think it is doing harm? I guess that's my biggest question.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So we got a whole new batch of future officers up there that are being taught that it's okay to rewrite history. It's okay to rewrite our own history when it comes to these things, folks. If you missed it last time when I talked about what Craig was, after the end of the Civil War, you had the Reconstruction effort. We had those that went back to their states, whether they were military officers, political officers in the Confederacy, and the administration elected not to charge them with crimes or put them in jail, let them go back and continue their lives with the caveat that they cannot ever hold public office again, but they would continue to receive their retirement checks so they could go about their lives. for that inter space period there between the end of the Civil War and before, really like the Spanish American War, when we came into modern times and became a world power, nobody knew what to do, and we had living Civil War members, Confederate Civil War members that were getting, they had nothing. They had no VA kind of services, nothing along those lines. Well, right after the turn of the last century, the president and Congress and everybody got together and declared them to be 100% U.S. soldiers. Those that were in the cemeteries, those that had statutes, those that served during the war. They were given all the rights and recognition of U.S. military soldiers. They were Americans, and that was the end of it. It's done. It's in law. And now we're going back, and we continue. Every time they take one of these down, they're disgracing and they're spitting on the graves of American soldiers and American heroes. That's what's going on now up there in the West Point. The wokeified generals, and I take this to the generals who are taking their marching orders from the Secretary of Defense and taking it from all the rest of the cabinet and this administration. Craig, it used to be, when you got to be on the Joint Chiefs of Staff and General Staff, it was based on your military abilities. Now, as you start to approach your stars, your admiralty and your generalship, that you get interviewed by the civilians at the Pentagon and the White House. They've groomed their own set of generals, so they'll do whatever they want to do. What that means, Craig, is if you ever get into an actual military situation, you're never going to have capable officers that are going to give you honest and realistic military advice. They're going to tell these politicians what they want to hear. And right now, what they want to hear is Confederate bad, take the statues out.
Well, and it's funny because and I actually did a little bit of studying on it myself and come to realize that like General Robert E. Lee and a number of Southern soldiers went out of their way, and one of the reasons why they were on was because they went out of their way that once the war was over to try and accept we are American citizens. This is to reintegrate and bring back together and try and rebuild the bonds that had been divided during the Civil War, to assure that we are these United States, and for that they were honored and respected. And I think that when you forget that, and when you ignore that, I think you leave out an important part of American history. And I get not celebrating the Confederacy. I completely and utterly get that. But my issue is that they're going beyond not celebrating it. They're to the point now where they're actually trying to deny history. And that does no one any good.
Let's be clear. That's an excellent clarification. They're not talking about taking down symbols that say the Confederate States of America. They're not looking at the Confederate flag or the Confederate States of America. They're talking about taking down the statutes of, Robert E. Lee and Sherman and I'm sorry, not Sherman, and all of the other Confederate generals that served during the Civil War. They're talking about the individuals, not the imagery of just the CSA.
And by the way, there were West Point graduates who served on both sides of that conflict. That's another part of the history you cannot ignore.
Right, including Robert E. Lee. Yep.
Right. And once again, it's a denial. You can recognize history without celebrating it. Now, what is to celebrate is how it ended, the fact that it ended, and the fact that it ended with slavery being declared. It was ended in these United States, and the United States came back together and became stronger than ever. Not many nations could have survived a civil war like that. First, a war for independence, though, and then within a century, a civil war, and only to then, following that, become the greatest nation on the earth in the following 100 years. That's worth celebrating and recognizing.
Yeah, 50 years later, 50 years after the end of the Civil War, we were a world power.
There you go. Well, who knows how long we'll be a world power if the wokedivists keep getting their way.
We have to listen. This. If you look up the wokedivists and you want to know what happened and why Rome fell, This is the reason why, because Craig, they went from the emperor there, the Caesars, and then they gave the powers to the Senate when they ended up inevitably giving it to the people. So every person had the vote, and they went to, you know what they had, Craig? Mob rule on the national level, and look what happened to them.
Well, exactly. And it wasn't, by the way, just so you all know, all the mob didn't get to rule. You know who are the people who got to rule? The people who live there in the big metropolitan city, the lefties, the people who wanted to do whatever they wanted to take other people's stuff. They were the ones who wound up ruling. You know, the folks like New York and Los Angeles and San Francisco Bay Area. That's who, when mob rule takes over, that's who will be ruling.
When the people were raising crops and cattle to feed the citizens of Rome, and they were making sure the aqueducts worked to send the water into Rome, those people weren't getting the chance to vote. Only the people in the city were.
Nope. Exactly. Yeah, you want to talk about it? Watch the Hunger Games, and you'll get that feeling for what we're talking about.
Yep.
All right, it's time, Mike, for our parting shots. Folks, our parting shots are brought to you by Hog Hosters. That's hoghosters.com. Go there, get yourself a quality concealed carry holster, the best in these United States. And the best part is that you can get a discount. All you got to do is use the discount code, The Rundown, all caps, one word, The Rundown. Go there and get your holster today.
There you go.
All right, so today we're gonna make these kind of Christmas themed. That's what I felt like doing. And this first one kind of fits a little bit of what we were talking about, and that's Santa's instituted a diversity training. You wanna let the folks know what this one is?
Yeah, you got Santa and the head elf there sitting in the sleigh, and the reindeer are now an elephant, looks like a gorilla, a mallard duck, a turtle, and a snake, all wearing little strap-on antlers on their head to show the new diversity in the reindeer gang.
Right. And the elf asks Santa, how's the new diversity program going?
Yeah, I don't know that I would have put the elephant that close to the sleigh. I don't
know. I don't know either. But let's put it this way. You notice they weren't airborne.
Yeah, no, exactly right. Exactly. To the sleigh, you're going to end up with a lot more than coal in your stocking.
Yeah, most definitely. Most definitely. All right, and our second one, this one is from our good friends at Full Metal Jacket Style. Okay, go ahead and describe this one to the folks, Mike.
Yeah, it's got Santa on the 50. Either waist gunner on an aircraft, it might be a helicopter, whatever it is. But like you said, in Full Metal Jacket Style, it says, "Anyone who runs is naughty. Anyone whose hands stand still is well disciplined and naughty."
Oh man, I think I'd rather get a lump of coal.
Oh, you're going to get lumps of coal. They're just going to come in about a half-inch size.
Ain't that the truth? All right, Mike. Well, hey, it's about that time. We're almost 40 minutes in. Okay. Well, how about a quick shout out to our sponsors before we cut out?
Yeah, let's say hello to our good friends at Hitman Industries, hitmanindustries.net. Rifle and pistol calibers available, rifle and pistol lengths. Go to hitmanindustries.net. The California Republican Assembly, get involved in California's future today. And if you want some awesome field gear, hunting gear, tactical gear, cold weather gear, whatever gear it happens to be, go to uscombatgear.com.
That's right, folks. These are our sponsors. They bring us to you. And they do so because they hope that we'll bring you to them. So do us a favor, go to them. All you got to do is follow the links in the description of this program. Check them out, spend some money with them, and make sure you tell them that it was the guys over at The Rundown that sent you. On that note, Monday Fun Day, Gun Day is in the books, and we'll be back tomorrow on Taco Tuesday. So we'll talk to you then.